This is your host, Keith Leroy Balsamo, also life coach Leroy. And I am joined today by Ruby. And in a moment, I'll let her introduce herself, share a little bit about her story. But first, I just want to say what this podcast is about and what I came up with as of right now. Probably a work in progress, like everything else in my life. um, this podcast is about identifying the micro moments that make our lives significant, significant beyond measure. And it's also about extracting wisdom from those moments and from the story of our lives. In addition to that, I really want this podcast to inspire people to create a life for themselves that's truly worthwhile and rewarding. So I'm playing around with that. That's kind of like what you're going to get by tuning in. And with that said, Ruby, the floor is yours. I'm just going to ask you to introduce yourself.
Well, thank you, Leroy, Coach Leroy. My name is Ruby Escalante DeVito. I'm originally from Colombia, born and raised. I've been in the corporate world for over 20 years. And a couple of years ago, I came to the realization that I wanted to find something deeper and more meaningful and bring it into my life besides corporate. And my heart and my soul were starving for to find that purpose. And I, as everything else, when life kind of just throws you those curveballs, um, I ran into coaching, and I decided that that could be my next adventure. And I did some research, a lot of research, because that's in my nature. So as I did my research and rediscovered myself and just searching for that purpose, I did run into, I not run into, but kind of just crashed into the wall of becoming a life coach. And that became my pursuit of happiness in a way. So I joined um, an institute for coaching, and that's how we met with Leroy. And here we are. And I couldn't be happier and in a better place, and just living, absorbing, and enjoying every step of the way.
I love that. And yes, you crashed into coaching. That's such a cool way to phrase that. It sounds like, it reminds me of, going with the flow. And it's like the flow, if it's water, carried it to you or carried you to coaching, and it just seemed to feel right for you.
Yeah. It's just like I tell almost everybody that I speak to about coaching is I have never been more convinced about anything in my life like I am convinced about coaching. And that's the right way for me to go, the right step where I can be completely fulfilled, happy, helping others as I grow myself, as I grow as a person as well as an individual, and the rewarding that it's so priceless of seeing the reaction of clients when they come to the realization of, oh, the answer was within me all the time. That's the beauty of it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. No, I couldn't agree more. Um, yeah, it's almost like I can't think about life without one being a coach, but we also have the luxury of being on the other side and being coached as well as we've gone through this training. And I can't imagine life without it now. So it's nice to see it from both angles as well, to be able to take something away and then also to be in the position where you get to help people come to their own realizations.
Yes. you said it. I cannot picture my life without it. Yeah, I can't. I
Hmm.
I never really thought about it, but I can't. Now that you mention it, I can't think doing something else other than coaching. And that's my ultimate goal. Um, to just, now that I found the wings, just spread them out and fly
Hmm.
with it. Yep.
Yes. And I think you're doing that for sure. This brings up some good questions though, because I think there's a lot here. You talked about being in the corporate world. Um, you mentioned how coaching has impacted you and how you feel like you've never been more certain of anything in your life. Um, Trying to think about which avenue I want to go down. What do we explore? I think something that would be really helpful is part of this podcast is also about creating awareness around coaching,
Mhm,
because I think there's still a lot of questions about what is it. And I think it's probably very similar to when therapy was taking off, and it's like, what is therapy? Is that something I really need in my life?
mhm.
Um, so maybe you can help us and the listeners, um, maybe get some clarity around what it is by sharing what it's been like for you to be in the role of client and how coaching has impacted you personally. Do you mind sharing an experience that you've had?
Not at all. During the pandemic, I was laid off, and the job landscape completely changed from years before, where I I was in the IT industry, and when vendors pretty much approached me and recruited me for different jobs, and at that point, I kind of found myself like, wow, it's like just like the pandemic changed everybody's world, it also changed mine. And I realized that the tools and the venue that I was looking to find another job was not working. And at the time, I have to admit, I didn't believe in coaches. So, but I started following some coaches. And like most people out there, did not know the difference between coaching and therapy. So I just kind of started going with the flow. And one particular career coach was having a workshop for LinkedIn, and how to use LinkedIn as a marketing tool to find your next job. So I joined her workshop, and after that she offered her program. And again, not believing in coaches, not knowing what the difference between coaches and therapy was, and kind of just following my instinct, just swiped the card and said, I have to try something else to see if I can finally get another job. And that program, her program, completely changed my life. And I learned about not only finding my job joy, which is the name of her program, but finding my calling and finding my purpose, which was coaching. And definitely identifying and understanding the difference between coaching and therapy, that now we know that it's coaching is working with our own tools from the present forward, and not going to the past as therapy. um, Coaches are, and we are, your number one cheerleader. We are there to hold from a flashlight to one of those huge
Spotlight.
spotlights, just to help people find their own way and find the solution that it's within them. So it completely changed my mind, my world, everything. And after I finished her program, like I said, I just went after it, just kind of wanted to find out more and learn more about it. Is it going to be for me? And I just kept getting this call, and that's how it changed my life. And so I'm here now as a life coach,
I
getting
love it.
ready for the next step, big step.
No, I love that. And yeah, there's a couple points that you kind of talked about. One was just swiping the card and trusting that, you know, that there will be some sort of takeaway from this. And you didn't really know what that was, but you, even before all the coaching and knowing what it was, just that moment in your life where you felt like I need to try something different. Um,
Mhm.
I think like I just want to like sit with that for a second because I've definitely been there. There's been so many things in my life up to this point where you just feel directionless and you start to feel, a little like demoralized or stagnant. And it's not like the worst feeling in the world, but it's not, it could be better, you
Mhm.
know? And so I love that you kind of just leaned into that and you said, this is something I haven't done. I'm going to explore it. And coaching is becoming more popular, more accepted. You're seeing it a lot more in like organizational settings in the workplace, but you're also seeing it now being used for people in their personal lives for health and wellness and other areas of their lives. And so, it is something that's there for us now. It's something that we can look into and explore. And it doesn't mean that it's going to be for everybody,
Mhm.
but it seems for most people that do end up finding a coach, they do have a lot to take away. And you at that point in your life to lean into something that you were a little unsure of, it's just cool because I think we have to do that sometimes. It's almost like a leap of faith.
Yes.
Um, and I think that's going to happen multiple times through our lives. And I think when we're there, we kind of just have to remind ourselves, like, I don't know how this is going to play out, And I think a theme that comes up for me today too is, we had a conversation earlier about like not being able, like, not knowing how it's going to play out. Like, even though like we think we can predict a lot of the things, we still don't know. We don't have all the pieces. So at some point, we just have to like move forward, and that's the only way we're going to get more data, more information is
Mhm.
by stepping into the unknown. So it's a really powerful part of your story, I think. Um, and then I want to ask you too. So I feel like you didn't go into much detail about the coaching experience when you worked with that coach. Can you remember maybe any sort of specifics about like what was a game changer in the moment, like what you were working with that coach that made you feel like, that was the moment when something shifted for me?
Her program had different modules, and one of her modules was called Clarity. And in that module, she kind of would take you to what it was that you wanted to do when you were younger or when you were a kid or before life happened, right? So, for example, I got into the corporate business in the corporate world just by coincidence, I guess. Just life took me there. And as you grow and as you become an adult, you forget all those little things when you were, what, 7, 8 years old. Oh, I wanted to be a firefighter. I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to be a therapist. And then either by peer pressure or social standards or whatever it was, in my case, was what are you going to do with being a therapist? You're just going to become a social worker. And then you're so young and your mind is not really ready to look at different aspects of what you want to become or who you want to be. And just you forget about those things. And then life happens and you end up taking a different road for whatever reasons may be. And so that particular module called Clarity kind of brought me to what I really wanted to be and who I wanted to be and what dreams I had um, back then before life happened. So that module just kind of woke me up, and that's what I said. Oh my God, I need to get back to that point where I can retake who I was supposed to be and just follow my dream. And that's something that we forget sometimes, to follow our dreams. And not even that, but we forget to trust ourselves.
Mm.
And we've heard many times, Leroy, trust the process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And not only trust the process, trust ourselves. Our instincts are so powerful that only if we trust ourselves, we can really become who we were meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that may not be for everyone, but there will be people that are looking for that purpose in their lives, and they're looking to just be happy. And we were talking about this a little bit ago, right? If you love to do something, it doesn't feel like you're working or some sort of that, right? So um, that module, clarity, just completely changed my life.
That's incredible. And
Yes.
that is, yeah, I think that really does exemplify the power of coaching, by taking something like that module and just having you sit with that, focus on it, ask powerful questions that help you dig a little deeper to think about what is it that I really want. And there was something that you said about trusting ourselves, and um, all these themes are coming up for me. And I almost think about like our coach training, which is, refrain from giving advice. Like that's not what coaches do. Coaches aren't here to give you advice. I don't have the answer for you. I'm going to do my best to understand you. But even as we continue to establish and develop our relationship and understanding of one another, even still, like if we were to work together for a year straight, I still am not completely in your world. I can never be completely in your world and have all the answers. So it's our job to ask questions. And like you said, I love that you emphasize like coming up with the answers for ourselves, finding out, getting our own clarity. And so if I go all the way back to where I started, it's kind of like, well, what is it like when you end up just taking everyone's advice at face value and you don't listen to yourself and you don't trust yourself? It's almost like the habit that you build is everyone has the answer for me. And so then you depend on everyone else to give you answers. And when they're not there, who do you look to? Not yourself. And
Yeah.
then who are you? And I think that's like, I love that our role really takes that concept and drills it home by saying, I'm going to ask you questions so that you can either learn to trust yourself or you can do it more often and more frequently. And so that you can work that muscle over and over again so that it's so strong that even in, the hardest of times, you trust yourself and that you'll get through it. And so for me, that's just so empowering. Um, because times are going to get hard. And, I even spoke about like feeling directionless at some point and that it's going to happen again.
Mm-hmm.
But the more I trust myself, the more I work with a coach, um, the more I embrace these ideas of like finding the solutions within myself. And that doesn't mean that there won't be support along the way, but the more I can look to myself for the answers and like do it for myself, um, just fills me with so much like confidence and power
Mm-hmm.
and makes me feel so resourceful and just again that I can trust that it's going to be okay. Like it's almost like instead of just being directionless, it's like, well, I'm only directionless right now in this moment, but it's not nearly as scary to me anymore because I trust myself. Because I know in due time I will come up with the answer, and maybe the answer is, here's like the caveat here is maybe the answer is seeking out a resource, is seeking support from someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to trust yourself that you can ask for help when you need it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so even that, like that stems and it starts with you. Like
Mm-hmm.
I have to reach out. If I don't reach out for support, how can I expect people to know that I need it? So yeah, I don't know. I'm going off on a tangent because you get me in this conversation. I could talk about these things forever, but no, thank you for sharing and sharing, a little bit about your story. Um, I think at this point, I'm curious to know, as a coach that is, you're continuing your education with Lumia, the life coach
Yes.
program that we're both in.
Yes.
Um, who are you as a coach? What does Ruby bring to the session?
Wow. Um, one of the things that I always thought during this journey of becoming a life coach and to continue my education as a coach is um, to be as authentic and as genuine as possible as I am. Um, and the reason why I want to do that is because there are so many guidelines, regulations, rules in every organization in life. And sometimes it's like we forget who we really are. And when we forget who we are, that's when we lose trust in ourselves, right? So getting back to that trusting. So I can only bring my true self with the best intention, and my only goal is to help those professionals, women, that my audience and my clients, just to remember their true value, who they are. And like you said, all we need to do is just ask those little questions that will kind of remind them and just kind of light up the, you know, the light bulb in a way of oh, yeah, I didn't see that. Those aha moments. And another thing that I like to do is, life is so short and we go through so many different levels of frustration and sadness, and we have to learn, or we have to remember how to laugh. And I always say that life has such a weird sense of humor that, you know, we have to learn how to laugh at those little jokes that life kind of plays on us. And in some of the sessions that we've worked together, we laugh. We have learned to laugh and see where we need to progress, and also just follow that guide that from our coaches. And so it's just been authentic, genuine, and full of positivity and laugh. Not everything is when we put like our pink sunglasses and we see everything pink and everything's rainbows and butterflies. And that's why we need laughter. You know, that they say laugh is the best medicine out there. So combination of laughter, positivity, and being authentic and true to myself is what I bring to my clients, and they value that.
Mm-hmm. I definitely value it. I've had the opportunity to work very close with you, with one another, and I will say, and I've said this before, being able to share a genuine moment and a laugh with my coach is just one of the best feelings in the world. Because when I hear you talk about authenticity and who we are and what it means to be human, and you know, positive emotions, negative emotions, if we're labeling them, um, I love that I get to experience that in those moments, just to share a laugh, whether it's laughing at something that is maybe slightly difficult, or laughing because something is just funny. And just because we're, you know, showing up as professional coaches and we want to do a good job, it doesn't mean that you can't have fun. Like for
Exactly.
me, fun can always be a part of the job.
Mhm,
Um, Even in my other roles and my other jobs, I believe that it's within us to show up and give 110%.
mhm,
And I believe the more we are showing up and we're upholding our responsibilities, and if we're working really hard, like we can also have a lot of fun too, you know, if we're getting stuff done. It's almost like I see, and maybe I'm going off a tangent here too, but within other like organizations, when the team's not all showing up together and working hard, it's hard for everyone to laugh because then everyone's pointing fingers at like people not doing their
mhm,
job. So I think there's this like show up, like hold yourself accountable to be professional, but make room for laughter, for fun. And if I'm a coach and I notice that my client is laughing, like I don't want to be taking it so seriously that I forget to laugh, that I forget to be present with them in that moment. And vice versa. Like I love that you bring that to the session, and it makes me feel like, oh, we can laugh here. Like we can have a good time. I can work through something really difficult, and then we can share a laugh at some point. Like that's one of the best feelings in the world. So I love hearing that about who you are and what you bring to the table. Um, yeah, it's just been incredible to experience that with you. And then this might be a good opportunity to talk a little bit more about authenticity, because I
Mhm.
think we hear that word so much. I thought at some point I've heard it so much, I've read about it, I've studied it, and it's like I had this idea in my mind that like you've got it all figured out about authenticity. But then I recently came across a book, and there was like a short section in there where it blew my mind about how they were talking about authenticity in relation to business and selling. And
Mhm.
so it was like a nuance to this idea that I thought I had it all figured out. But I'm wondering for you specifically, to show up authentically as a coach, what does that mean to you?
Interesting that you say that. Back in my corporate days, you have this idea of being authentic and professional, right? So some people, well, most people in the podcast are not going to be able to see my hair. My hair is naturally curly and it's kind of wild, and it's got some um what should we call them? Silver highlights.
Yes, yes.
And back then, you have I dare to say the misconception that being professional was identified with having your hair straight and always looking perfect,
Mm-hmm.
no visible tattoos, um, always being proper. And at some point, yes, but that doesn't mean being not being authentic, or being authentic has to go against what you look like. And that's something that I've had a very challenging times accepting on what those stereotypes are. If you're a professional working for an IT company, managing different regions, emerging markets, you are supposed to look X, Y, and Z. Um, Whereas if you show up with your curly, crazy hair, with a couple of visible tattoos, and then if you in a meeting, there's somebody says something funny, and just somebody says, "Oh, that's funny," instead of, "Oh my God, that's so funny." That's kind of like, in my interpretation, it's not being authentic to yourself. If I see or hear something funny, I will laugh. I decided many years ago to stop straightening my hair and just wear it curly and wild, because that's who I am. And I'm not gonna dye my hair, because I've always thought that those little gray highlights, which are becoming to be more noticeable, are highlights of wisdom.
Hey, there we go.
So it's staying true to ourselves, not necessarily because of what society, or why an industry, of something else. It's categorizing that's the way it should be. I remember very clearly, in one of my past jobs, they took me to HR because I laughed too much.
Oh boy.
And
This is where the laughing gets you into trouble.
exactly. And it was so interesting that the HR person said to me, "I don't know how to say this, but some people have complained that you laugh too much." And I was like, I started laughing because what am I supposed to say? I'm sorry. I'm trying to sell some stuff here. I have to be charming, right? So I'm laughing at what if the customer makes a joke, I'm going to laugh even if it's not funny. And so that's where you start seeing the different, when you really notice that, okay, this is who I am. I cannot fight the guidelines, the regulations. I will try to be my best, the professional that I am, because even if I laughed or my hair is curly, I'm still a professional. I'm getting a job done and I'm giving results.
Hmm.
So all those stereotypes doesn't make you any less professional. And yet you're still being genuine and authentic and true
Hmm.
to yourself.
Yeah. Hmm. I have a
By
question
the
for
way,
you.
did I answer the question? I think when
No, I appreciate where you took us because I'm thinking a lot of other questions, and I think, maybe before I move to the question, part of what I'm hearing you say is there are times in our lives that we have to decide for ourselves, am I being authentic and genuine in this moment? And ultimately, you're the only one that's going to know.
Mhm.
And so what I hear from your story is if you're selling something and you're connecting with the people that you're selling to, the customers, whoever it may be, and you're laughing with them and you're having a good time and you're making sales, and there's really no other reasons that um, are, an indication that you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, then if the company has an issue with that, I feel like it's up to the person, you in the story, to then decide, well, do I sacrifice being my authentic self to meet their criteria of who I need to be and when I show up to work? Or do I find something elsewhere that aligns with who I am so that I can show up authentically? And I think that's a tough question because that am I willing to sacrifice my authenticity in this moment? That could turn into, well, maybe that does mean parting ways with this company, or and maybe there are parts of this company that you love, but it just so happens that they're upset that you laugh all the time, and it's like, so it gets tough, and it gets
Yeah,
this is, I feel like your story kind of highlights, it's one thing to say that I want to show up authentically, but there are also other people out in the world that make it hard to do that sometimes, or the companies that we work for. And depending on what authentic means to us, you know?
exactly.
So, and like, to say that, us coaching together too, like, and for me to talk about sharing a laugh with you, like that's something that I truly love that I get to do, and that we share that, and like we meet on that level. Um, but within our industry as well, there are people that coach and client may not be a good fit. And if laughing is not something that someone wants to do when they show up to a coaching session, because that's just not who they are, and
Mhm.
they want to be as authentic as they can, then that's someone that you may not work with, that you
Exactly.
may not be a good fit. So again, you get to decide too. And I think, another underlying thing of authenticity that I'm picking up on in this conversation is showing up and being authentic as a way to signal to the people that you're interacting with that you can be authentic too. And if we both come from this place of authenticity, then we can decide what's best because it's honest and it's genuine. Like, I think,
Exactly.
like, you can't think about authenticity without associating those other terms with it. And with that comes, if we're both coming from this place, then we can be truly honest about what this
Mhm.
is. We can be truly honest about what kind of relationship this is, about who we want to be and what we appreciate about each other, and also what we don't like where we don't vibe,
Right.
where um and it's hard to do that if you're not being authentic or honest or genuine. And like I said, I throw all these terms out there because they're all very much associated with one another and connected. And if you're not doing that, it's hard to almost know like who each other is at the core. Like are we showing up as ourselves? And if that's a question, like that creates a lot of like I don't know, like it's like really fuzzy. It's like murky. It's like, what are we really doing here if we don't know? Um, so yeah, these are just things I'm picking up on. I don't know. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts when I talk about that?
It's like when if I were to be um not myself, not keeping true to myself or who I am as a coach, and I'm trying to coach my clients and guide them to find the better version of themselves, and discovering the wisdom that they have within. And I'm not being authentic to myself. What am I portraying to my clients?
Mm. Yeah.
So that's something that, like, and you said it perfectly. There will be people that will want to work with a coach like me, and there will be people that won't. And that's completely fine.
Mhm.
Um, as long as we all are true to ourselves. And that all ties up back to trusting ourselves. Um, I trust that the skills that I have as a coach, what I'm learning in coaching, where I want to take my career as a coach, and live in the purpose to helping others to find their true selves and follow their own wisdom. uh, then I'll be contradicting myself as a coach. So to me, I cannot show up as somebody that I'm not.
Mhm.
um and I do remember clearly something that one of our coaches instructors said to me. I love tattoos, and I have been looked at very nicely or very judgmental when they look at my tattoos. And this coach had a sleeve, and I'm just mesmerized by tattoos. And I had a discovery call with her, and at some point she said, we were talking about her tattoo, and she said, Ruby, just the tattoo is a reminder that if I ever have to wear a long sleeve to go to work, it means I'm at the wrong place.
Wow.
And that's just stuck with me ever since.
Boom.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
That's powerful.
that is powerful.
I love that. Wow. That is, woo.
Okay,
That's, yeah, that's,
goosebumps. Yep,
you're getting goosebumps and I'm getting shivers. Oh man, something's happening here.
yep, yep.
Wow. I want to say I think I know who you're referring to, and I maybe even heard a part of like what this person said to you when you had your 101. Maybe that was expressed in session, maybe a little bit, but it's such a powerful message, and I think that just
Mhm.
kind of like sums up what we're talking about, right? Like you get to decide, like if I like I'd rather have these tattoos. And so I'd rather either create a job for myself or go somewhere where I'm welcomed, you know?
Exactly.
And tattoos are still, in many ways, such a taboo. And I feel like in our society, like a lot more acceptable nowadays, but even within the workplace, some places still don't want you to show those. So yeah, that's incredibly powerful. I don't know. That left me speechless. You left me speechless twice today. You're just woo. Okay.
It's so interesting because, for example, a tattoo does not make you a better or worse professional.
Mhm,
If you love to laugh, it doesn't make you a worse or less professional.
mhm,
So there are these little things that have no influence whatsoever on how you develop and how you are as a professional and how you accomplish your job. So that's something that I love, that companies are looking more into, opening their eyes into true talent versus stereotypes.
mhm,
A while ago, I remember I saw a LinkedIn post from an attorney that she had just made being partner, and she's posing for her picture for the firm, and she's wearing a blouse, like sleeveless blouse, and she had another sleeve. And she tells her story on how she went to one of the firm partners and asked him if it was okay if she showed her tattoos. And she said, sure, your tattoos are just your tattoos, doesn't mean that you're a good or a bad attorney. And so they she was surprised because she thought that he was going to say, no, what are you kidding me? It's an attorney, blah, blah, blah. And she posted that picture on that article on LinkedIn. And I thought we need more of those bosses out there, more of those corporations that don't judge your work or your performance on a tattoo, a haircut.
Yeah,
So
I
that's
love that.
pretty powerful. And that's when we start trusting ourselves. You're like, you have that confidence, and you don't need to say a word when you're that confident.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like everything speaks for itself and you're being
Mhm.
exactly who you know you want to be. There are so many just powerful messages in that. And thank you for sharing too, because I was speechless and you kind of just took over and I'm like, whoo, like just really hitting this one home and it sounds great. And yeah, I'm feeling just really inspired and yeah, just it's filling me with a lot of energy because now that idea of authenticity is on my mind and just a reminder of why am I doing all the things that I'm doing, and hearing you talk about your story is very empowering. And yeah, no, I love it. And I love that for if that's an article that's on LinkedIn and people are seeing it, it's also an example of, you know, the changes, the cultural
Yes.
changes that we're experiencing. Like it is happening, you know, to say that some people still look at tattoos in the workplace and being shown in certain places as a taboo. Like it's not everywhere and it has changed and it is changing and it will
Mhm.
continue to change. And I think also, as you said, like you still have to show up and be good at your job. Like if you are
Mhm.
an attorney, you can't you can't be a really shitty attorney and have a bunch of tattoos. Like
Right.
no, you need to have tattoos and you still need to be good at your job. Like
Exactly.
it's not just fighting for the tattoo. It's you know, all the above. It's I can do this with tattoos or without. Um
I think
so
I'm
yeah.
gonna get another tattoo right after this podcast.
You know, I've had tattoos on my mind recently too. I don't plan to stop getting them, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, neither am I.
All right. Well, this has been good. I feel like maybe we could wrap this up by maybe just one more question and taking a few more minutes to wrap this up. But trying to think, how do we want to go out? What is what is one kind of inspiring message or piece of content or song? What is one thing that's helped you on your journey that sticks with you that you feel like you could share with the audience right now, just as something to leave them with, you know, something that's influenced you, helped you?
um, I think sometimes we neglect to pamper ourselves, and there's so much talk recently about self-care and
Mhm.
self-awareness. And when I talk about self-care, so, oh, and I'm gonna go to a day spa or get my nails done. No, I think one of the mm, not secrets, because it's not a secret, but part of my journey was to start paying attention more to my thoughts and what I was trying to figure out what my next step was going to be. Um, I was never into journaling real quick because when I was a kid, I was journaling and my mom found a journal and then I was punished for whatever I wrote on the journal. But I started taking notes of when something I was going through thoughts, whether if it was a good or bad or whatever, and then I would read them again. What does this mean? And then taking the time to just listening to my inner voice a little bit more, paying just a little bit more attention. And just as when we're sharing time with one of our best friends or our boyfriend, girlfriend, and we're so in love with that person, we're so committed to that relationship, to that friendship, and we listen to that person just with our five senses and our bodies. I think we definitely should do that with ourselves. And that may sound a little bit narcissistic, but I started falling in love with myself a little more and a little more every day. And I started forgiving myself for things that I was being too hard on myself, for not, um, for example, for not, I had this X amount of activities scheduled for today and I didn't get to do them. I was like, oh my God, I should have made more time. How would I do? Just for being more forgiving to myself. Just, okay, it's a lot, maybe I can plan better next time. Just listening a little bit more to my inner voice, being more forgiving, getting to know myself more. And just as much as I pay attention to all those other people that I love dearly, my husband, my brothers, my mother, my nieces, my nephew, it's the same thing with myself. Just
Mhm.
loving me as much as I love those people around me.
Wow. Beautifully said.
Thank
And I
you.
love it. I love it. And you threw a word out there. I don't think it does sound like that. I think it sounds like something that I know that I can personally relate to because I put a lot of pressure on myself.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're describing, I came across this idea, this, showing ourselves this type of self-love that we
Mm-hmm.
offer to other people. I think in the book that I read, it was by Jordan Peterson, and he goes off to talk about how quickly we'll like take our dogs to the ER if something
Mm-hmm.
happens, or just that or even just something not as extreme, like just making sure that they make their appointments on time, and yet we won't schedule a routine doctor visit for ourselves for like blood work, and just emphasizing this idea that like we're so quick to do these things for other people, and it's because we feel like I love them, like I want to make sure my dog's taken care of, and it's like, but are you taking care of yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And what would life look like if you took care of yourself a little bit more and you showed yourself that same type of love, um, in the way that you do the people around you? What would that look like? Everyone would be better for it.
Yeah.
And maybe we wouldn't come down hard on ourselves, or as hard as we do, and yet we would still be able to push ourselves to achieve great things, but it wouldn't be as miserable along the way.
Yeah. Very well said.
Yeah.
Well
Well,
said.
thank you for sharing that. Yeah, no, I think that was a great way to kind of end our conversation today. And this is the first episode of the new podcast. It's been great to talk with you and to record this.
Oh, yes. I feel honored and very happy that you took me into consideration. I told you that if you weren't gonna offer me, I was gonna get back to you. I was like,
It was a no-brainer. I was, gonna reach out to you, and I'm so glad that we did this. Is there anything else that you want to share, as far as like coaching, or, anything related to what you're doing, um, or where people can find you, or content, or anything related to that?
yes. So my practice is Ruby Rhed coaching. I'm now in Instagram and in TikTok. I'll soon be launching my website. And but definitely the one thing that I want to say is, uh, don't be afraid to look for help. We all need help. There's nothing wrong with asking for help. Um, Inform yourselves what a coach is, what a therapist is, what a mentor is, what a consultant is. Um, I do have to say that being a coach and having been coached is is based on positive psychology, and it's so enriching, and just to find the value in ourselves and to find the answers within ourselves, it's unbelievably gratifying.
Yes.
Um, and to be part of that journey of so many clients, it's so rewarding. So it's okay to ask for help. There's a lot of resources, and we're just human that we need to learn to love ourselves, trust ourselves, and then ask for help when we need to.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and I love that you emphasize how many different types of help and resources and types of support that is out there. And
Mhm.
that's the thing is, take a look at it all, see what feels right. For coaching, this podcast is obviously going to focus on coaching. Um, like I said, the goal is to create awareness. It's to
Mhm.
talk about these experiences openly. I hope to even do a live coaching session on the podcast one day to really give people a glimpse into what it sounds like, what it
Mhm.
looks like, and just the power of having a conversation focused on figuring things out that will, you know, change your life, not only for the better, but just in profound ways.
Mhm.
Coaching is a very powerful tool. I'm excited that I get to do this. I'm so happy that I get to sit here and talk with you. Thank you for doing this with me. And yeah, I loved everything that you had to say, and I hope people have something to take away from it all.
Thank you, Lyra. You're doing an amazing job getting the coaching out there, and our jobs is also to educate and just kind of show the magic of coaching and what it does, because we've seen it firsthand, right? And
Yes.
so it's amazing. It was a great time spent with you this past hour. So you know Ruby Rhed is RubyRhed. And we'll see you out there.
Yes. Sounds good. Thank you, Ruby.
Thank you, Leroy.